Parias, also named as Nakare-1011c, was a terraformed world far into a possible future, transformed by humans as a gargantuan hunting reserve in an unstable age of space exploration. After seeding the world with quite a few game species, mostly from North America, the planet was promptly abandoned during an interplanetary period of chaos and warfare, with humanity never returning to the Nakare system ever again. Humans may have never returned to the world they abandoned, but the many species of plants and animals humanity left behind among the stars have expanded to fill the niches of a new world. Welcome to Parias, an abandoned world. On the last episode of Parias, we explored the rich diversity of the Western Floodlands and its complex floral subregions, hugging the damp shores of the Great Far West. In this episode, we delve into the unique environment of the savanna. On Earth, savannas are tropical environments with less rain than monsoon or rainforest climates, dominated by grasslands and the gargantuan beasts that consume them. Parias is quite similar, but with some notable exceptions. Given Parias as a planet had no native organisms, with every species and genera brought by humans in a seeding event, the species brought by humans provided only a partially complete biogeography. Further still, the majority of species initially brought to this exoplanet have origins on the more temperate continent of Holocene North America, so almost every animal and plant will be on an equal playing field when it comes to colonizing a new environment such as this, adapting radically to this new tropical climate. What also makes the savanna of isolation such a strange environment compared even to other tropical parts of Parias is the land it is on. Lucindo has been isolated from the rest of the supercontinent for a few million years now, so any tropical animals here can't explore the rest of the jungles and savannas of the world unless they can fly or swim there. This environment is surrounded by jungles to the north and to the east, mountains in the south, and sea to the west. So even getting to this environment by foot is a challenge for most animals. This land has an incredibly low level of plant diversity compared to other parts of the world and the continent itself. The few plant species that thrive here do very well and in sheer numbers are dominant, enough to support a massive number of animal species. The common grappogranate is a pomegranate species that, now feral, relies on birds to consume their seeds. Their fruit shape has changed quite significantly, allowing easier access for avian frugivores to spread them effectively across the region. The bottom of the grappogranate will rot out fast in development, allowing strands of seeds loosely attached to a string-like organ to fall and hang in the wind. Wild grappogranate is a large shrub, growing to a maximum of 4 to 5 meters in height and growing around as wide as it grows tall. The seeds of this species will be quickly passed through the digestive tract of the animals that consume them, allowing the next generation of plants to grow and develop on a new patch of soil. Fire mangoes are a unique group already pre-adapted for the tropics, with the plant's body plan changed to adapt to a new niche. The plant is small and fast-growing, never growing more than 2 meters in height, and is quite drought-resistant. What makes this plant unique is the changes to its fruits, which has some of the toughest seeds on the continent. These tough seeds are fire-resistant, and the key to its reproductive cycle lies within that trait. When the dry season strikes the land, fire mangoes undergo a significant abscission, with most of their water in the cells returning to the root systems. If any of these plants were to catch fire, they would become a near-instant bonfire that burns the plant to the ground, alongside other plant species nearby. This scorched earth policy allows their own seeds to have a higher likelihood of survival, and they become the first to germinate when the rains return. Purple corn is another domesticated plant made feral, and one of the few species of corn to make it through. Modern corn is quite reliant on humans for growth and reproduction, but this species managed to find a way to survive without their human farmers. Purple corn gets its name from the purple shades in its leaves, which is more efficient in this new context. Purple absorbs more rays from the twin suns of this world, allowing them to grow at an efficient rate. This species is drought and fungal resistant, growing up to 10 meters tall given the right conditions, and have become incredibly widespread. Whilst it can grow up to 10 meters tall, it more commonly reaches heights of 4 to 6 meters and only reaches those sizes around rivers or other consistent water bodies. Purple corn uses wind dispersal on tassels that develop into kernels on a cob, which attract many animals to consume and spread their seeds. When the dry season comes, they pass on, the next generation quickly growing when the slightest hint of rain returns. Impenetrable is a palmetto species that is an essential keystone to small animals across the savanna. This plant has changed very little from its ancestor, save for the sharp spines on its leaves. This trait helps the impenetrable from being consumed by herbivores, and in the wind, the blade-ridden leaves will slice anything in its path, usually preventing other large plants from growing near them. In riparian forests around the savanna, there are massive swaths of land known as impenetrable forests, where they consist solely of impenetrable trees. These small trees grow between 1.5 to 3 meters tall, precluding large animals, especially large predators, from entering these small forests. This plant grows small yet vibrant purple fruits, primarily eaten by birds, but also consumed by small mammals and insects. Lucindan garlic grass is the most prominent small plant in this region, noted for its distinctive cyanish leaf color. This gives the region a unique color, with the foliage looking almost alien. Without competition from true grasses, this garlic descendant dominated the landscape. It is generally unappealing for herbivores, who only eat from this plant when no better alternatives can be consumed. All parts of this plant have the distinctive garlic taste that, while delicious for humans, many herbivorous species on the planet of Parias would turn away from. However, due to its prominence across the savannas, many grazers had to make do with what they had available. This garlic forms clonal colonies connected by root systems, allowing them to be efficient primary successors when a natural disaster such as a fire occurs. These clonal colonies play a game lasting for centuries with other plant species in the regions, their territories growing and shrinking with the coming of dry and wet seasons every Parian year. The gargantuan skyscraper tree can occasionally be found here as well. Found in the jungles bordering the Lapis coast to the east of the savanna, they occasionally can be found this far southwest. These plants regularly grow over 130 feet tall and are incredibly thick. These plants are few and far between on the savanna, but they can survive here due to the lack of competition for the niche of large trees, and their intensely thick skin make them fantastic survivors of forest fires. They do struggle when they are young, The vast majority of skyscrapers burned or cut down by herbivores before they can up their defenses. When they reach their adult size, often quite smaller than their rainforest kin, they nevertheless tower over their flat and short environment. These trees are also a keystone in many ways, as adult skyscrapers are the superior real estate for the innumerable birds in this region. Fungal diversity in this region is quite poor, given many of the plants here are feral domesticates, given a head start over their wild brethren, with extra human genetic modification before abandonment. However, some fungal species can be found here, which are commonly found across the continent in general. The common cap is the most prevalent mushroom on these hot plains, being a descendant of the beloved edible shiitake mushroom of Earth. They have changed very little during this time, but they tend to grow best around impenetrable and skyscrapers. The tuber mimic is also quite similar, having a readily edible final life stage and makes them a great source of food, which is optimal for spreading its own spores through ingestion. Yellow-lipped, bruised, and great amanita also exist here, the iconic trio found across the western continent. These fungus species are adaptable and low maintenance, making them excellent at colonizing new locations. These fungi have a complex series of life stages, the vast majority of which are underground, with the exception of their final stage, the mushroom. This part of the fungus is the reproductive part, where the spores come from and where the fungus spreads to the next generation. Forest egg is a relative to the Amanita trio, which has gone through a stage of neoteny. Their final stage resembles an incomplete growth of a mushroom that resembles a bird's egg if you don't pay enough attention. Bird eggs are an incredibly rich source of nutrients, and predators will rarely deny the free opportunity for such nutrients. But a fake egg will not have the same benefits. Forest eggs have thus undergone many evolutionary pressures in different locations across the continent. Looking vastly different, they resemble the eggs of local bird species. This happens as random fungi that look the most like a local bird egg will spread their spores and their next generation, and over many generations, you end up with uncanny lookalikes across the continent. Sap creep, in comparison to other fungi in the region, have a different method to grow and reproduce. Whilst other species focus on either decomposition or spreading nutrients between plants, sap creep is an active parasite that lives on a wide variety of host plants. Its mycelial filaments grow on surfaces of plants, usually forming a branching, veiny growth that wraps around non-wooded stems. Hyphae sprout underneath the mycelial veins, which pierce deep into plant tissue and absorb nutrients. Instead of producing fruiting bodies, tiny nodules along the mycelial growth secrete a sweet, sticky substance that is riddled with spores. Invertebrates attracted by this sweet substance may get spores stuck onto them, and inadvertently carry the spores to other plants to infect. Sap creep is commonly associated with cultist ants, which will eagerly consume the sweet secretion and are a major disperser of this fungus. Crawling among the grasses and plants is the Swiss cheese slug, a slime mold in a completely different phylum compared to true slugs. This slime mold descendant has begun to take on a new form. Its cells have taken on a unique kind of partitioning, where some cells move the organism, others act as a primitive kind of armor, and some further still are used for feeding. These cells can change form whilst the organism is alive and can reproduce by being cut in half, which normally happens if the organism is pursued by a predator. Arthropods and chordates have dominated the niches on the savanna, with mollusks and other phyla of animals being unfortunately less successful. When it comes to the arthropods, they take on a great number of roles and niches. There are the parasitic swarms of beetles that have featured in previous episodes, specializing in different parts of the host's body. The muscle eaters, fusers, skin biters, and fat burrowers all consume different parts of their hosts as endo or ectoparasites. These four groups have massive diversity, as different species employ one or a few species as their targeted hosts, and all of these, especially of the ectoparasitic variety, are frequently picked off by cleaner birds or other mutualistic beasts willing to eat the parasites off of their hosts. Given the high number of angiosperm species in the region, many of them needing pollinators to thrive, butterflies dominated the niche of pollination to exploit the high amount of nectar. The coastal flaming butterfly pollinates the impenetrable most in this region, eating leaves and fruits when they are young. Due to their diet of non-toxic leaves as caterpillars, these bright bugs are not poisonous and rely on more R-selective strategies to survive, using pure numbers to get by. Moochfly is another species that mimics other toxic species for their own survival, a strategy that is less effective here, but since there is enough resources to go around, a small population of moochflies survive in the region. Grinch-faced butterflies, or festive flies, have a vastly different reproductive strategy. Leaving the toxic leaves of their ancestors, these butterflies have a green coloring on both males and females to help blend in, or at least for females. Male butterflies are larger and have incredibly noticeable red splotches and white antennae, which make them very easy to detect. Females tend to stay in a small territory, and males fight for their attention with the flashiest colors. This forces males to be colorful, but if they are too colorful, they are the easiest to be caught by predators. So the ones that make it to mate demonstrate their fitness despite their gargantuan handicap against them. Leafwings are closely related and act more hidden to avoid being consumed by predators. Leafwings as adults are small and lime green, preferring the tropical shrub-like mangoes as their preferred pollination species. Whilst all these viceroy butterfly descendants have adapted to become pollinators, not all of them have remained so. One group, the crimson jewelfly, has adapted to feed on carrion and feces as adults. This diet may seem disgusting to us, but it is an important part of this environment, as crimson jewelflies clean the savanna of corpses and other materials that, without their assistance, would certainly pile up and pollute everything. Gloomy butterflies, in comparison to all the others previously mentioned, have no diet as adults, lacking a mouth entirely. They spend the vast majority of their lives as caterpillars, metamorphosing at the end of the wet season in a massive swarm of mating, with all gloomy butterflies dying after they are done. When they are young, they use a series of sharp spines and a nocturnal lifestyle to avoid being eaten by larger bugs or insectivorous vertebrates. All of these butterflies have a similar life cycle, going from eggs to caterpillars before forming a cocoon, metamorphosing within the cocoon before emerging as flying adults. What makes the striped spike bug unique is the complete lack of the adult stage, Due to the lack of competition from worms in this part of Parias, they have undergone a unique form of neoteny to remain as a caterpillar for their entire life cycle. They commonly still undergo the formation of a cocoon, but they emerge as sexually mature caterpillars rather than butterflies, using their time within the safety of the cocoon to form their reproductive tracts. Many striped spike bugs use their old cocoons, formed near or below ground, as home bases for the rest of their lives. Prefer leaves, but will eat anything they can find, including the caterpillars of other butterfly species. This savanna is full of colorful butterflies that have taken a variety of niches and partition equally to account for their diversity, but they are not free from predators. The jade assassin centipede is found in the tropical parts of Lucindo and are arboreal specialists. They can grow up to a meter long due to the higher oxygen content in Parias' atmosphere, and jade assassin centipedes use this size to ambush flying animals and dispatch their prey quickly. These animals can take down birds larger than they are, with females of this species using this high level of success to invest more in the next generation, being surprisingly K-selective for an arthropod. Juvenile jade assassins have a diet of flying insects such as butterflies when they leave their mother's protection, and are proficient predators, with over half of their hunts being successful. Another arthropod threat to watch out for on the tropical lands of the western continent is the amethyst false hornet, which are a generalist species. This group uses its wings to fly around and establish territory, where a queen controls her workers with an iron fist. What may take someone by surprise, however, is the fact that these organisms are the descendants of ants. For their ancestors, only the elates, or reproductive members of the colony, have wings, but pressures from other animals, alongside some lucky mutations, have allowed the species to retain wings in every caste of ant. They nest in trees, using a glue-like substance to make their nests with the help of their young saliva. They can buzz loudly to deter predators, and a mature colony has few threats besides forest fires and other false hornet colonies. False hornet wars can be some of the most deadly conflicts on the grasslands, with deaths being in the tens or sometimes hundreds of thousands. Cultist ants, in comparison to their flighted brethren, have adapted to the blank canvas of the tropical climate in Parias with sheer numbers. These ants may be incredibly tiny as individuals, but billions upon billions of them can live in a single super colony. Cultist ants build mounds that cool their underground complexes and store young in a relatively safe location, as few animals are crazy enough to alert the swarm. Cultist ants are non-aggressive towards other colonies of the same species, often collaborating even when times get challenging. This is because their ancestors were genetically similar to each other, so when colonies spread, they rarely needed to fight and often benefited from helping each other out. This comes with benefits and drawbacks. The benefits are the population density and strength when fighting for food, using their numbers to mob larger animals and take them apart alive. The drawbacks are the rather low genetic diversity, which makes them vulnerable to extinction events or disease. The arthropods have intense diversity, even on a low diversity of plants, and the same can be said for the vertebrates. Fishes and amphibians here have to deal with the low amount of permanent water bodies, low precipitation for half the year, and high temperatures year-round. However, these animals have certainly found a way. For the amphibians, the exterminator toad is by far the most common. These big guys spend the majority of their day hidden in sediment, ambushing small animals such as mammals, birds, and other smaller amphibians when one gets too close. Their massive mouths, in proportion to the rest of their bodies, makes them excellent and voracious killers. Exterminator toads lay their eggs in ephemeral water bodies, forcing their young to grow fast. When they turn from tadpoles to toads, they are often quite undersized and eat massive amounts of ants before they are ready to eat bigger prey. Another frog species that thrives upon the savanna of isolation is the northern cricket frog. This organism is an insectivore specialist, eating almost exclusively ants for their entire life cycle. They lay fewer but larger eggs when they reproduce in water, so each individual tadpole has a higher chance of success. This animal looks unimposing, but is incredibly toxic, with the toxins from any ants it eats remaining in its digestive tract throughout its life. This frog is very resistant to ant bites, using a long and sticky tongue to lap up ants from an ant mound like a puppy from a water dish. Fishes have some more diversity here as well, including the ever-present thin goby, a small generalist fish that thrives in many environments along Lucindo, or the western continent. These fish don't have much unique going for them besides their adaptiveness for new climates, making them great on a relatively new world like Parias. Tapirfish are an organism that can be found in the savanna, but they spend most of their lives downstream in the jungles. Here, they eat algae and detritus in rivers, but much less of that can be found upriver. However, with less resources is less competition. Tapirfish regularly swim upriver to lay eggs in massive numbers before returning to their eating grounds closer to the rainforests to the east. Their juveniles grow up here, eating algae and other underdeveloped tapirfish before being large enough to head downstream and begin their transformation to a much larger fish. Tapirfish max out at around 1.5 feet from head to tail, with a downward-facing mouth that makes them great at their job. Tapirfish often get followed upriver by the large and territorial tropical moray. These snake-like fish are related to other moray groups mentioned in previous episodes, and like them, capitalizes on the niche of apex fish. They have high levels of tolerance to both fresh and salt water, growing up in the salty coral reefs along the Lapis coast before returning to rivers as adults to feed on smaller competition. They display heterodont teeth, which they use to capture different kinds of prey, and a thick mucus that protects them from predators and allows them to temporarily exit a body of water to move into a different one, although this move is often dangerous and risky. The redhead catfish is a medium-sized generalist that feasts on other fish in the region, as well as consuming algae and scavenging on animals that die in bodies of water. These creatures are native here and can be found nowhere else in the world. They occasionally will target large living prey items, like large migratory mammals, taking a chunk of flesh out of their victim but keeping them alive. This behavior can cause a feeding frenzy, which can quickly turn deadly for any animal in their way. Walking snakehead is a fish quite well adapted for the region, able to estivate like a lungfish when the dry season shows its ugly face. This animal is also a generalist, but tends to be more territorial than its catfish competitors, with a larger mouth that it uses to ambush prey and swallow it whole. This fish maxes out at around half a meter long, but can swallow organisms quite large in proportion to itself. Flying above the frogs and the fish, there are a gargantuan number of birds present in the region. The climate and its relative isolation to the rest of the landmass make this an ideal ground for birds to migrate to. Migratory birds are incredibly common here, spending their time feeding upon the insects, fruits, and leaves of the savanna, with many of these animals nesting in the Spinal Mountains to the south. The cobra ribbonfowl, moorduck, Parias crake, false rails, dutes, and Parias ducks are all duck descendants that have evolved to become migratory birds, each with their own preferred nesting ground in migratory cycles. Many of these birds come to the savanna at different times of the year, with some especially nice years hosting all of these duck species in the same location. These birds are generalist omnivores broadly, but they often find themselves on the lower end of the food chain, easy prey for many other groups, but they survive on being adaptable and, frankly, everywhere. Ducks are quite present here, and many of them fall prey to the two groups of eagles, with ranges that spread further south into the blood-red sands of the Crimson Desert and the peaks of the Spinal Mountains. The egg pecker is a lanky hunter that prefers to scavenge over direct kills, with a uniquely powerful sense of smell for a bird, allowing them to be great egg eaters. The Lucindan great mountain eagle, on the other hand, has become a massive bird that can go toe-to-toe with other predators of the region. Their massive talons and sharp beaks are used to take down their prey, and often make short work of these ducks. Both of these animals are bald eagle descendants, neither of which really resemble their ancestral form. The Zumu is a flightless goose descendant that is closely related to the dazzling Zemu down below to the southern edge of the planet. This flightless bird has long legs that allow it to be extremely fast, and this animal uses this speed to run from threats to safety. Their feathers are striped with golden hues, useful for allowing these ostrich-like geese to more easily spot each other out on the tropical savanna. Whilst they are fast creatures, they are also very social, as they will utilize safety in numbers for better odds against the predators of the region. This animal lays its eggs under small, impenetrable forests for protection against predators. Fisher birds have, intuitively enough, evolved to hunt fish. The descendants of shoebill storks, these organisms have evolved to specialize further into hunting and eating fish. Their beak has small serrations that ensure fish cannot slip out of its jaws, and its legs are very long and strong. Its eyes are incredibly complex, allowing them to see very well through the glare of water, making them more efficient pescatarians. Despite their lanky proportions, these animals can often be spotted nesting in massive skyscraper trees, providing passive protection for ducks and other small birds in the region from eagles. Fisher birds can sometimes fall prey to these eagle species, but are bulky and well armed enough to have a fighting chance. Their strong legs allow them to take off with relative ease, but their large size makes them rather poor flyers when it comes to long-distance travel. They retain the serial monogamy of their ancestors, but due to the expansion of their range, and introduction of more competition, they have opted to lay and care for more eggs per clutch, only terminating hatchlings that were not bound to thrive in the first place. However, fisher bird parents still play favorites, giving out the first food to the strongest hatchling, so the young often have to spar and fight for the role of golden child. These birds are a mostly gray color, with exception of the head, which is more orange, with a yellow beak protruding from the feathers. The hopping jay is a small bird that spends plenty of time on the ground. It hops towards prey in a fashion that may look silly from an outsider's perspective, but in reality is rather energy efficient. When a hopping jay catches prey, usually a small rodent or other small bird, they will stand on their prey with relatively strong legs and pecking them repeatedly until death, like a woodpecker, but upon flesh. Hopping jays are social and live in small, monogamous groupings, with loud vocalizations that allow them to defend their territory from conspecifics and other animals. The quilled raven is a flightless generalist that will generally resort to scavenging when given the chance. This bird uses a completely novel defense compared to other birds with the evolution of quilled feathers. Their body and wing feathers have transformed to become incredibly sharp, still made out of the same materials, but with some changes to their structure, changing them from aerodynamic flight feathers to long, thin, and stiff spines. This helps them become incredibly defensive against predators, given they tuck their heads in time. If a predator tries to take a swipe at them, they will find their mouth or paws impaled by sharp spines, which could put a predator out of commission, potentially permanently. This animal is moderately sized, but they also live in large social groups. These are the smartest flightless birds on the continent, and have occasionally dabbled in medicinal behaviors, rubbing fruits and leaves on wounds. These animals are monomorphic, mating for life and living in small groups consisting of 2 to 6 mating pairs and their young. Males tend to leave these groups and join new ones to avoid inbreeding. The Neapolitan parasol tail is a bird of paradise descendant, otherwise known as the parasol bird. The males of this species have incredibly vibrant pink, black, and white feathers that help them attract mates. Males will defend their nests harshly as the female forages for food. They primarily are frugivorous, and they nest in impenetrable forests. Impenetrable trees are actually reliant on them for spreading their fruits. So are the parasol birds reliant on impenetrable for protection. The Stymphalian turkeys are a tropical turkey adapted for eating grasses, fruits, and bugs. Surprisingly enough, not much changed for these animals compared to their ancestors, besides more armored legs to protect them from ant bites. These animals are also relatively poor flyers, using their wings to fly away from ground predators. The domain of the savanna has split its rule between the mammals and the non-avian reptiles, who both control many big niches on the food chain. Starting with the great diversity of reptiles, we must examine the monitors of the region. Monitor lizards were brought to Parias as one of a dozen or so exceptions to the rule of North American megafauna, and being native to a tropical climate, they had a natural advantage to the tropics of Parias, especially here in Lucindo. The oatmeal monitor is the more basal reptile in the clade, using their small size to get by on a smaller diet. The leopard monitor, on the other hand, has become much larger. With a maximum length of 3 meters or 10 feet, these semi-arboreal predators spend most of their days in the rare skyscraper trees or tall purple corn along the land. They act as ambush predators against mammals their size or smaller, jumping animals and using their long claws and teeth to tear apart prey before consumption. With longer legs and a more upright posture, they can escape competition and catch prey more efficiently. These animals are fairly territorial, especially among males, and are rarely seen together unless for mating. The puffwalla and puff drake are derived horned lizards that are closely related and share a fairly unique defense strategy among lizards. These animals have loose skin with gaps of air in between that can be inflated by breathing in, turning the animal into a terrestrial pufferfish, for a lack of a better term. The puffwalla backs up their defensive spikes with an intense toxin, which they gain from consuming massive numbers of false hornets. This beast comes with very unique colors that makes them incredibly easy to see from any distance, a trait that helps them be actively avoided by predators. Puffing up allows them to further intimidate large predators, although they can occasionally be jumped and eaten by some birds, especially when they're young and haven't built up the right amount of toxins within themselves. Puff drakes have a different strategy, using a long, spiked tail and flailing it around like a hooked whip when they are caught. A strike from this tail can be quite painful, protecting the animal from smaller predators and allowing it to fight another day. Another pair of closely related animals are the gualgana and the Lucindan undertaker, evolving to fit different niches to avoid direct competition with each other and with another animal we will describe soon. Both alligator descendants have changed fairly radically, the gualgana remaining fairly small and the Lucindan undertaker evolving a more terrestrial lifestyle in response to a lack of mammalian predators. The gualgana is a pescatarian specialist, eating little more than fish. With sharp, spiny teeth, large eyes, and a more hydrodynamic form, this small beast gets a little more than 6 feet long as adults, but can still be a threat to small mammals and birds. Fully grown adults can bring down some more larger mammals, but this tends to be a rare occurrence. The Lucindan undertaker, in comparison, has evolved a more terrestrial lifestyle. With spiked osteoderms for defense, this animal has one of the strongest bite forces across the continent. This bite force helps shatter bone to be consumed in chunks. This animal is adapted for a scavenger's diet, with an incredibly strong sense of smell and enough power to bully other predators from their carcasses. This animal is primarily terrestrial, with long legs that allow the animal to walk long distances from corpse to corpse. When no carcasses are around to scavenge, including bone piles, they will target live prey instead. This part of the world has some snake species as well. The flat-tailed Parias water snake, or the flat tail, is a water snake that evolved a more paddle-shaped tail and other traits that make them great swimmers. They can hold their breath underwater for a half hour and can eat fish and any aquatic invertebrates that they can find. They have a strong musk that they use as a defense against threats. These snakes will often migrate downstream during the worst of the dry season, but prefer this habitat for nesting their eggs. The titanoviper is a gargantuan snake that reaches more than 30 feet from head to tail, with a highly venomous bite that they use to eat prey. They eat anything they can fit in their mouths, from other snakes to alligators to mammals to birds. They give birth to 3 to 4 precocial young that fend for themselves after being born alive out of their mother. Their venom is potent enough to kill prey much larger than they are, but they use this more often as a deterrent, using less venom for its preferred food. They lie in wait in water bodies and will ambush medium mammals or reptiles, a bite proving fatal fast. In response to massive snakes like these hiding in the waters, other animals have also adapted to hide. The purple-backed snake hides on the dark leaves of the purple corn. They target birds that frequent the corn in the region, using their muscular body to crush their victims. They will also eat eggs if given the opportunity. Their camouflage helps them both catch birds and helps them avoid being predated themselves. One may be easily forgiven if they mistakenly associate the ground needhog with being a snake, but this limbless lizard is in fact a lizard. The ground needhog is a legless lizard descendant and is a fossorial animal, digging through the dirt and hunting for the bounty of ants under the ground. Their tunnels are useful as they break up the dirt in the region, and that helps many of the feral domesticate plants grow as seeds. The ground needhog has a fairly long tail for their body size, dropping it in response to predation, with the tail writhing around as if it was a smaller and more confused needhog. Turtles and tortoises have also carved out niches for themselves on the savanna of isolation, ranging wildly in sizes and diets, the smallest of which is the semi-fossorial sand turtle. This musk turtle is the last of a lineage of terrestrial musk turtles that have all gone extinct with the recent influx of mammalian competition, a problem that affected many reptile lineages in this bioregion. This animal uses 2 defense strategies: a heavy, flat shell that remains half submerged in the ground when approached by a threat, and a thick musk of a powerful odor. This odor overwhelms the strong sense of smell of many animals in the region, who often retreat when musked upon. This animal eats primarily leaves and fruits, only rarely consuming meat, given how many other scavengers exist here that get to the bodies first. Despite being largely terrestrial, they retain some aquatic capabilities, allowing them to swim away from a threat that bypasses their nasty odor. The lock-necked gopher has an extreme series of adaptations for its lifestyle. Its super long neck is used to swiftly exit its hiding hole to attack prey, usually birds or bugs, before returning to its nest. The only defenses this animal has is being hidden, and with a moderately strong beak that gives them a fighting chance against other burrowers. This beast does not do as well here, as there is a higher concentration of animals that can easily dispatch it, with this animal being more successful in the Crimson Desert. The largest turtle by far here is the lalau, a massive carnivorous ambusher. Another relic from an older and more chaotic time on Parias, early on after abandonment. This region was dominated by a radiation of turtles and alligators, many of which did not persist when mammals eventually caught up. The lalau is a massive alligator snapping turtle descendant that has violently yanked the niche of apex ambusher from the alligators, relegating them to niches in their shadow. This turtle has 3 life stages, determined by size and age. They max out at 4 to 5 meters long, including their tails. They have the potential to live long, but many cannot, as when they get too large, they will fail to support themselves should they ever get beached, leading to a slow and painful death of being dehydrated or crushed by their own body weight. When they are young, their shells do not fully form, especially on the plastron, allowing much more movement on the legs. While young, they use this speed to eat insects and other animals, hiding in the abandoned homes of other animals such as needhog nests. When they eventually get large enough, they ontogenetically shift towards an aquatic ambush predator. Males tend to be much larger than females, as females do need to go onto land in order to lay eggs. Mammals are relative newcomers to the region for the most part, but their dominance pushed away many of the reptiles to change or face extinction. They range from tiny to gargantuan, from migratory to sedentary, and range wildly in survival strategies. Starting off big, we have some migratory mammals that make this land their home only for a portion of the year, such as the iconic Lucindan wandering sheep. These wanderers have been mentioned numerous times before, with their strategy to move from place to place depending on the year for optimal growth. They move in massive flocks, with overprotective males fighting amongst themselves and other species to prove their valor. Males brave enough to fight bears or wolves or animals they frankly have little chance of actually winning and live to tell the tale will reproduce with the most females, this trait becoming more common over generations. This results in a rather extreme sexual dimorphism, with males having extreme horns and being almost double the size of females when fully grown. These mammals move from the Great Forest to the south, on the eastern continent through the monsoon scarlands or the Spinal Mountains, to the Savanna of isolation in the north, repeating the cycle every year. They eat grasses and other low-lying plants. Another migratory mammal is the pilgrim elk, a unique mammal adapted to traverse a rough environment every year to avoid the dry season. In the wet season, pilgrim elk will consume massive amounts of plant material, gorging on food before trekking along the coast of the Crimson Desert, a risky procedure that can be quite deadly. This trip happens south to the western floodlands, where these animals exist for the dry season up north. Down in the western floodlands, there is much more food, and down there is where the males fight for mating rights. They reproduce before returning north, where the females give birth in the savanna at the start of the wet season. Jack horses are feral horse descendants that have adapted for life in the tropics. Unlike some of their earthling relatives, jack horses are small and lanky. This helps disperse heat more effectively, which is also assisted by their large donkey-like ears. Jack horses are surprisingly less aggressive than other equids, living in smaller herds of 1 to 2 males and 2 to 6 females, alongside the foals of any female in the group. Their long legs help them be even more effective long-distance runners, as they use this to get away from threats on the savanna and the Crimson Desert. This new land holds small mammals as well as large ones. The sting hare is a rabbit descendant that has spikes it can flare up when threatened. These quill-like hairs stay close to the body when they are below in their burrows, and they erect these spikes only when they are pressed by predators. Their front arms have a very thick set of skin that allows them to more easily mate, as having a spiky behind can be a problem when mating occurs very frequently. Despite these spikes, they are not always safe, so their primary strategy still revolves around extremely fast levels of reproduction. Sting hares will sometimes flare their spines to a partner that they find attractive to show their fitness, with the other responding in kind. These are among the smallest of native mammals here, being around the size of an American football as adults. Rosamus lucindus is a small species of possum with a unique evolutionary history. This group actually rafted over here from the supercontinent very early in Parian history post-abandonment, with their ancestors and any close Lucindan relatives dying a long time ago. Rosamus is tiny, around 6 inches long minus the tail, and reproduces incredibly rapidly. They live in small groups in underground dens, and these beasts are at the bottom of the food chain. They get eaten by almost anything else in the region, with even the large arthropods preying on them. They eat anything they can get, which doesn't need to be much due to their very diminutive size and relative lack of endothermy. In many ways, they act like rodents in their life history. The Monosui are an actual rodent descendant that has evolved a much more different strategy. They evolved from other relatives on the continent, starting rather humbly in the desert and moving northward into new niches. Their desert ancestors evolved bipedalism for a more efficient means of travel, alongside having less contact points with the intensely hot desert sand. This trait became accepted when the ratites moved out of the desert, with their hind limbs becoming longer for a more cursorial lifestyle. Their front limbs are used more often to hold objects, like food or eggs, to bring home to nests. They are adaptable, small generalists, never growing more than a foot tall. They have thick tails that they use for balance, alongside fat storage for when times get tough. Monosui live in large social groups and have complex vocalizations to alert conspecifics of the many dangers that hunt them, having unique combinations of vocalizations that specify the amount and kind of predator that is on the hunt. These small mammals live in the shadows of titans that prefer to stick around when times get tough. The Savanna striped deer is a massive organism that is a low browser, consuming the low leaves of the savanna. This deer is much thicker than its ancestors. No longer reliant on the stealth of the forest, these deer had to pick fight or flight. They chose fight. These deer are very territorial, especially among males, but they have enough muscle to easily defend themselves when fully grown. Females of this species have permanent horn-like structures on their heads that they use for defense, as they are not opposed to using their heads to defend themselves from potential predators. The Turim antelope is another giant species, with a long neck that allows them to feed on high and medium plants. They stand tall and proud over the savanna, using their height to grab high plants. Corn and young skyscrapers are their go-to foods in this part of the world. With the assistance of their tough mouths, they can feed upon the sharp, impenetrable leaves. They rarely do so given that impenetrable trees are very low-calorie and not good for a 4-meter-tall behemoth, with the added cost of occasional harassment by Neapolitan birds. They use their size alone to deter predators, as few things are brave or stupid enough to target a healthy Turim antelope. They live either on their own or in small herds, no more than 4 strong. The long-legged bison is a bison descendant that has evolved to more easily persist on the tropical grassland of the north. They have lost most of their fur, trading their fluffiness for thick skin. Their ears have expanded to get rid of heat faster, and they have retained their large body size from their ancestors. Males are much larger and more aggressive than females, and the development of a single calf can take a very long time. Because of this, bison have much tighter social groups that watch out for each other's young, as development is extremely risky. However, long-legged bison are strong and large animals, so healthy adults are almost never targeted by predators. They eat grasses and fungi, alongside fallen fruits on the ground. Dagger-tusk boar are meter-tall omnivores that eat more vegetation during the wet season and meat during the dry season. During the wet season, these animals are primarily solitary, besides young dagger boars, or slices, following their mothers around. Slices are born rather precocious, able to walk less than a day after birth. During the dry season, the mating cycle among these large hogs begins. Males expunge a lot of pheromones that attract females and encourage other conspecifics to mate and mob prey items. Dagger boars form large mobs in which males and females reproduce randomly with as many partners as possible. This results in the young slices often having different fathers within the same litter, and less aggression from male dagger-tusk boars to females of their same species, considering that the young of those females could be his. After mating, these mobs will attack random animals, sometimes even larger than they are, tearing them apart in a hormone-fueled rage. After these mobbings end, the females will be given the opportunity to eat first, giving themselves a heads up when growing their young. Their large canines grow like tusks and are used as weapons, hence the name. Another medium-sized omnivorous mammal that lives in this isolated tropical ground is the boarish dillo. This armadillo descendant is fairly large, a meter from head to tail, with extremely long claws that it uses to break up ant mounds and to defend itself. This beast can eat almost anything it can find, from meat to plants to fungi. This group lives in harems, with males violently guarding their mates. Females always give birth to 4 identical pups, almost every single time. Boarish dillos will charge predators if they feel threatened, with enough force to make animals reconsider. Sometimes this will backfire in a deadly fashion, but a success will cause a harem to be left alone for another day. This animal will hunker down when they find predators of a higher weight class, but will run as fast as they can if they see an undertaker, as that animal is the only one that can just pick them up and crush vital organs in their jaws. The largest predators on land, besides the leopard monitors and Lucindan undertakers, are the wolves. Wolves themselves have undergone some changes in this region to accommodate for hunting different kinds of prey. The red-faced wolf and running wolf have 2 different strategies to succeed against different prey types. Red-faced wolves are heavy-set and quite bear-like in many ways. They have thick necks and legs that help them bring large prey down to dispatch them, assisted by an extra pair of carnassial teeth. These large wolves can take down large bison, and they can be 1.5 meters tall when fully grown. Packs consist of 4 to 8 related adults, with mostly males dispersing from their natal packs to new territories. These animals are very social and smart, with different packs having different vocalization cultures, preferred prey species, and preferred hunting strategies. They can live for up to 20 Parian years, which is an impressive feat given that Parian year is significantly longer than an Earth year. The running wolves are a similar cousin of the red-faced wolf, with lanky bodies that make them great runners. Running wolves have larger packs compared to red-faced wolves, targeting small mammals and birds with a surprisingly successful hunting rate. They also will target small cervids and horses with complex hunting strategies involving multiple actors in a large party. A series of runners, trappers, and finishers who can take down prey much larger than they are. These animals are also very social, with partners that mate for life, and widows almost never having a second partner. When new packs are established, a male and female will hunt together, and will only further court each other if the hunt is successful. A surprising dog that roams the plains on equal footing with the other canids is not a true wolf, but a coyote descendant. The scavenger hound is a hyena-like canine that eats meat and bone, but will also eat fruits when given the opportunity. This hound has an intensely strong bite force, rivaling their crocodilian competitor. Scavenger hounds live in small groups with a dominant mating pair and helpers at the nest, or canids that stick around the pack and help their younger siblings before they establish their own. Scavenger hounds will occasionally make fresh kills when carcasses cannot be found, with youngsters getting the first dibs on food brought home to them. This high-level attention to their young is because other species will go out of their way to kill young scavenger hounds as a form of harm reduction for the future. Scavenger hounds and Lucindan undertakers are extreme competitors, having an overlapping diet despite being disparate groups. These animals regularly steal carcasses from each other, undertakers more successful against smaller packs, and scavenger hounds more successful in larger numbers. Both groups use different intimidation tactics to get the other away from their food, with scavenger hounds boasting a massive mane and undertakers with a very loud chuffing noise. Only time will tell which side will outcompete the other, or if both groups will find their own independent niche on the savanna of isolation. This region hosts a variety of animals great and small, but pales in comparison to the most diverse bioregion of all of Lucindo. Tune in for the last episode of this season, when we finally reach the Lapis Coast and the jungles found alongside. Thank you so much for watching this video. It has been a long time since this project has started, and things are going alright. If you want Parias to continue and thrive, we need your help. If you can like, subscribe, and share this video, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, a great thanks is owed to the people of the Discord server of Parias, as the vast majority of animals come from their ideas and collaboration. If you want to join this elite creative community, you can join by clicking the Discord link in the description and the pinned comment. Have a great day, and thank you for watching to the end.